What's going on, guys? I'm Pete, and welcome to Retro Game Attic. I've been digging through some old bins of my old gaming magazines from back in the day, and I thought it would be fun to revisit them. I randomly pulled this one out of the bunch, so for today's video, let's browse through GamePro issue 49 from August 1993. Alright, so let's check out the cover. You can see that the big game that they're featuring here is Street Fighter II Turbo, which was super popular at the time. There's also a special selection from Starfox. They're going to cover some Genesis, Super Nintendo, Sega CD, NES, the Turbo Duo, Neo Geo, Game Boy, and Game Gear. So there's a wide variety in this magazine, which is pretty cool. So we'll flip through the page. So you got a sweet advertisement here for Cybernator for the Super Nintendo by Konami. I really don't know much about the game, but I would assume since it's a Konami game on the Super Nintendo, it's probably at least decent. And then next up we have a Super Advantage advertisement for the Super Nintendo. Now this is actually a really cool controller. I personally have one myself. So an interesting tidbit about this controller, it wasn't made by Nintendo, it was actually made by ASCIIware. Pretty cool to see it here, because losing does suck. And we'll flip the page. In more ASCIIware, we have two secret weapons for the Sega. For the Sega. For the Sega Genesis or just the Sega? Kind of weird wording there, but I like it. And here we have the table of contents. So you got your mailbag, letter from the Game Pros. It's pretty cool that they cover arcade stuff here. Street Fighter II Turbo, of course. Here's some reviews for the various consoles. And look at these screenshots here. I mean, they look pretty decent. I know capturing game footage was not easy back in the day. Yep, and that's Shinobi 3 right there. And now we have an advertisement for the Meteor Man. Now, I don't know anything about this movie, and I'm kind of ashamed as a 90s kid. We got Eddie Griffin, James Earl Jones, Big Daddy Kane, Sinbad, and Luther Vandross. Now, I'm going to check this one out because it looks pretty promising. And here we have more of the table of contents. Again, with those screen caps, they don't look too good. They did their best with the Game Gear one right here, Streets of Rage 2. I have that game personally, and it's awesome. And then we have some of the Starfox characters down here. There's coverage for it. Now, I know the character models were inspired by the Thunderbirds, which was like a cool puppet show in like the 60s or 70s, I believe. And we have an advertisement for Yoshi's Cookie. Again, I love that old school artwork. It's awesome seeing stuff like that. And you got Bulletproof Software pushing themselves right there. I think it was developed by them and published by Nintendo. I could be wrong on that one. A letter from the Game Pros. I'm not going to go through it. And look at this Mortal Kombat advertisement. Look at those screen caps. They're so bad. I love them. Nigel beats Mario. Pretty clever. Got it. Mario Andretti. I actually have this game. I've never played it. I really don't have much ambition to play it, which means I should probably get rid of my copy. But pretty bold advertisement though for back then. That's pretty cool. I'm sure that caught a lot of people's attention. And now we have the mailbag where users submit their questions and comments and whatnot. I love like the in-house animations or the in-house artwork that was produced by these guys. It was always pretty good. And now we have some Flying Edge games for the Game Gear. Pretty straightforward advertisement. I like it. And here's more of that mailbag. Mike Bison. And I guess that's some fan art of Bubsy. Cool spot. That's actually pretty awesome. That's the cover of the game, I believe. I thought this was a pretty good system for the time. They go over their rating system. Bubsy comic by Eric Lee of Tulsa, Oklahoma. I mean, he looks like the man. I love those glasses. And here's a weird advertisement for Robo Lest, or Leste, or however you pronounce it, for the Sega CD. There's really not much to digest there, and I guess in 93 I would have been 8 years old, so this would have done absolutely nothing for me. But maybe it was more effective to kids who were a little bit older, or just people who cared a little bit more than I did. And some pretty cool 3DO coverage here. A brief glimpse into the future. Knowing what we know today about the 3DO, it was a pretty good console for its time. It didn't have the best games overall, but there were some pretty good ones in there. So here it goes over the various developers making games for the console, and more advertisements. Bulls versus Blazers. Now this game's actually pretty awesome. I have it on Genesis. I like it. There's a lot going on here, but I do like it overall. It's pretty effective, and the screenshots actually look pretty good for the time. And here's their arcade section going over the arcade games at the time. The Punisher is an awesome arcade game. I played this one at a barcade, I believe, and my friend and I beat it. It's not the hardest game in the world, but it's super fun, and I wish they brought it home in some shape or form. I know there is a Genesis game. I'm not sure if it's a port or if it's based off of it. So if you do know, please let me know in the comments. F1 Grand Prix Star 2. I don't know that one, but judging by the screenshots, it looks pretty awesome. Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, which is a Capcom game, always good. And then moving on here, we have In the Hunt by IREM. I think this was ported to the PlayStation 1 at some point. I could be wrong. I've heard only good things about it. I've never actually played it myself. myself, but I know Irem is a good developer, and they make some pretty awesome shooters. So here's Crime Patrol by American Laser Games. They made Mad Dog McCree and Space Pirates. Wolfenstein VR. Look at that. That's hilarious. That's so 90s. VR was the rage at one point in the 90s. I know, obviously, there's the Virtual Boy, and then Sega had their own iteration, the Sega VR, that they were developing that I believe got axed. But pretty funny to see stuff like that. Capcom Slam Masters Grand Battle Royale Tournament. I believe this game was ported to the Genesis and Super Nintendo as Saturday Night Slam Masters. Pretty cool. And now we have another advertisement here, NFL Football. I couldn't care less about football, so this really doesn't do too much for me. The only football games I really do like are NFL Blitz, and I'd say Tecmo Super Bowl. And here's their Street Fighter II Turbo coverage. That artwork that is done in-house is actually pretty cool. And of course it was reviewed well, 5.0s across the board. This game was on the cover of the magazine, so of course there's going to be some extensive coverage here. And look at these characters. I mean, the artwork that was done in-house is pretty good. Like, whoever did this was definitely skilled. Dacim, E Honda, Ken, and Ryu. And man, they really wanted you to subscribe back then. Like, look at this. I mean, 12 issues for 1997. That was pretty good for the 90s. And again, here's some of that awesome in-house artwork. Pretty cool. And you have some more Street Fighter II coverage. I mean, there's not much to be said about this game. Everybody knows that it's pretty awesome and well regarded. WWF Royal Rumble. Now, I have respect for wrestling. I never got into it, but I do think it's pretty cool. And I don't know if this game is good or anything. I mean, you got the LJN logo, so there's not high expectations there. I know the 80s and 90s were kind of like the golden age of wrestling. I could be wrong. I have no idea, but it's probably a decent game if I had to guess. And now they have their coverage from the 93 CES, Mega Man X. And look at that logo. I guess that was done in-house as well. Yeah, all of these look like they are. They're just a little bit off. Kind of like the royalty-free logos, like the Mortal Kombat. Jurassic Park is kind of close. Super Empire Strikes Back. Stellar Fire. Lethal Enforcers. That game's actually pretty fun. Star Trek The Next Generation, which is like a generic party font. Top Gear 2. World Heroes. I think this is an SNK game. I just like seeing these royalty-free logos. They're hilarious. Like Rabbit Rampage with like those crappy clip art rabbits and the Daffy Duck feet. There were limited resources in the 90s for sure. It's not like how it is today. Aladdin, Super Mario All-Stars. And look at these screenshots. Like, that's obviously taken off a CRT. Yeah, these screenshots are pretty atrocious for the time. Like that one, that would never fly today, not even in like a crappy YouTube video like this. The super zoomed in and like off-centered Super Mario All-Stars. And now we have Sonic Spinball, Sonic Chaos, and Sonic Mania? Like the best Sonic game of all time, Sonic Mania? Or is that just Sonic Mania because they have Spinball and Chaos? That's interesting. Probably not interesting to too many people, though. And then more CES coverage here. Virtua Racing, one of my favorites. Pink Panther, I actually had that game on Genesis when I was a kid. NBA Jam, of course. Yoshi's Safari. Mega Man 6 Best of Show. That's interesting. It's a great game, don't get me wrong. It's just interesting. I guess by 93, there was slim pickings in the NES library, in terms of new releases at least. Link's Awakening, good choice. Uh-oh. Do not enter Acme Games Test Lab. Welcome to the Sunsoft Looney Bin. I've never played any of these. Pretty cool advertisement, though. I mean, Looney Tunes was huge back then. Here we go. Here's some of the hardware stuff. What kind of wacky stuff do we have going on here? SegaWare, the new NES. Look at that pre-dog bone. It has like a square controller kind of modeled off the first one. It looks like it has like curved areas in the back, I guess, like where you can place your hands. Pretty cool. Never seen anything like that. And then the AT&T Edge 16, a Genesis peripheral that enables you to play Genesis games against friends or enemies over existing phone lines. I wonder if this is like a precursor to the X-Band. TTI wireless pads for the Turbo Duo. Those are pretty awesome. So here's a Trade West advertisement from the company that brought you Billy and Jimmy, or Bimmy and Jimmy, of Double Dragon and Resh, Zitz, and Pipple of Paddletoads. Two very successful games in their own right. So I guess they used those two to try to sell you on Plock, and I don't think that worked out too well. More CES news. Oh yeah, I was just talking about this. The Sega VR glasses. Look at these old school photos. That's awesome with all the CRTs in the background. Man, I would have killed to be there. Look at that Sega booth. That is awesome. Sega CDs set up. up. And look at this for the Duo. It's awesome because how bad it is, but look how zoomed in and pixelated that is. Like somebody approved that. And trust me, I don't know much about graphic design or anything like that. It gets the point across, and it was a different time, but it's just wild to see something like this in a magazine. More CES snapshots here. These are pretty cool. The Jurassic Park Explorer, Yoshi and Mario, Koei Tecmo, or it was just Koei back then. Jurassic Park, Sega AS1. Pretty cool. Aero the Acrobat. And here's some coverage of Genesis games. Shinobi 3, which is an excellent game. Bubsy. Wow, look at that. It got like a 2-page spread. Here, what are the ratings on it? 5.0, 4.0, 4.5, and 5. I was a kid back then. I did not enjoy this game at all, and I tried to pick it up a few years as an adult, and I just couldn't do it. But I guess there are people out there. I mean, to each their own. Techno Clash. I don't know this one. And again, it got pretty good ratings. 4.0s and one 5.0. RBI 93, not big on baseball, but I actually had that game when I was a kid, and it's pretty fun. Fatal Fury, here we go, Software, etc. I used to love this place. $3 off, $5 off Bubsy. I mean, $3 is $3, especially back in the 90s. Vampire, Master of Darkness. More Genesis games. Lightning Force is a sick game. An Incredible Interception. Now, judging by this, I haven't looked at this. It's probably Mutant League Football, so that's effective advertising. Oh, there it is, Mutant League Football. It might be a little gory, but it's pretty funny, actually. Good job, EA. Flashback Strategy Guide. Now, I never got into these games. I know there's Flashback and Fade to Black, I believe, which was on the PS1, with like those delayed and like sort of fluid movements in the characters. It's not for me, but I know people love it. And here's more coverage on it. This is pretty awesome. A Batman Returns advertisement from Konami. And this game was like ported to everything. I think it was on the NES, Super, Genesis, Sega CD, and probably others. Probably the handhelds. Pretty awesome artwork, though. I never heard of this place, Chips and Bits, from Rochester, Vermont. I assume it's kind of like a Funko-Land, but probably not as big. But these are all new games, so they're not used, I assume. Turbo Duo for $289. Neo Geo Gold for $569. Wow, that's crazy. Pretty awesome, though, seeing some of these prices. Now this is awesome. Hot fun in the summertime, so it's their GamePro Hot Tips hotline. The graphics are amazing. It looks like it was done by like a middle schooler in their graphic design class. I mean, I love it. And it's only 99 cents a minute. So here's more of that 90s extreme advertising. You got these dudes on the left side like wailing on each other, and then certain words on this side of the page are emphasized, like super slap shot, out flies a puck, shredding, check me, I'm in control of this game. It's so lame. I'm judging by these screenshots. It's probably not the best game. Hilarious, though. And here's some Sega CD coverage. Echo the Dolphin, which I can attest, it's like basically the same as the Genesis version, but the music is awesome. It's got like that CD quality audio of like atmospheric kind of songs. It's hard to explain, but it's awesome if you can ever check it out. More Street Fighter 2. Pretty interesting that Capcom opted to advertise in an issue that was like pretty much dedicated to this game. More Sega CD games, Afterburner 3, which kind of sucks. So these Turbo advertisements are killing me. I know Cotton is another respected game. I've never played it. I know it's super expensive and it's probably fun, but these advertisements are like the worst. Like you can clearly see it's like hand drawn. Not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just like there was no budget or they just didn't know the audience. It's just so interesting to me like that someone said like, okay, like print this, let's go for it. Interesting. Maybe that's why the game's so rare. And here we are on to the Super NES game, Zombies Ate My Neighbors, which is an awesome game, and it reviewed pretty well. It seems like they like most of the games here, which is interesting. And I like how they pick out the victims and the monsters. Even though the screenshots aren't the clearest, it's still pretty cool that they did that. Goof Troop by Capcom. I do need to give it more of a chance because I'm a big fan of the show and the Goofy movie, of course, which is an amazing one. Okay, so this is a cool advertisement. I want to let this one sink in for a second. You have the Game Boy games. You have a North American Super NES with Super Famicom controllers. It appears to be SNES boxes, but they're Hudson branded. I don't see any Nintendo branding on them. Same thing with these. They look a little bit smaller, so maybe they're like Game Boy boxes or NES boxes. And then this awesome like 80s, 90s phone. Like look at those graphics. That's amazing. Very cool. I like this one. More SNES stuff. Rolling Thunder 3 for the Genesis will blow you away. So extreme. Extreme. Evo, Search for Eden. I know nothing about this game, and given that it only got in the ranges of the 3s here, and these guys give everything a good score, it's probably not the best, but I'm not going to take their word for it. Another Duo advertisement. Man, like they were just like off the rails with these. Like that's in a kid's magazine. That's brutal. I mean, this does nothing for me. Maybe if you're into like horror or dungeon kind of games, dungeon master games, this is for you, but I don't know. These turbo marketers were like the worst back then. PTO for the Super NES. Mighty Final Fight. Okay, finally, like some NES advertisements. And again, I've only played this one on an emulator as well, but pretty cool to see it in there. By 93, I mean, the NES was essentially dead. I think the last game published in North America was in 1994, which was either Mega Man 6 or Wario's Woods, if I'm not mistaken. So we're most of the way through the issue, and NES is going to be one of the last here. We have Yoshi's Cookie, quality screenshots, and then the reviews are kind of all over the place. 3.0, 2.5, 4.0, and 4.5. It's a fun game. I don't see anything wrong with it. So here we have another advertisement. It's Battle with the Best, Battle Blaze for the Super Nintendo by Sammy. And pretty much all that's in the advertisement is just a zoom in of the guy on the cover. Maybe that's the main character. I have no idea. And behind the NES is a Neo Geo review. Kind of makes sense because these games are expensive. $239 for this game back then. And then another Duo review. Out of all the ones so far, this one, in my opinion, is the best for Magical Chase. Another one that I know people love. Again, it's a hand-drawn image that doesn't look like it's the best quality. It looks awesome. It looks like almost like fan art, but there's something about these that they don't seem professional to me. But maybe that's just me. Imagine stepping into a strange and wonderful world filled with cute, lovable creatures who all try to kill you. A Duo CD review. Super Baseball in the futuristic year of 2020. Jungle Strike. This one's a pretty fun game. The advertisement here, I mean, they did it right, EA. I mean, it catches your eye for sure. Somebody's blowing up the Washington Monument. There's like a dude on a dirt bike with these miniguns mounted on the side, skulls on the top of a temple. Like, this is an advertisement. It's clear. It's awesome. It probably caught my eyes back then as an 8-year-old and catches my eyes now as a 39-year-old, so it's effective. And then here's Overseas Prospects. It's pretty cool that they do that. I guess the British game scene, so it's all the PAL stuff, French game scene. Obviously, before the internet, it was pretty like mysterious to see which games were coming out where. Information obviously didn't travel as fast, so pretty cool to see it right here. And here we go, Tecmo Super Bowl. I think I said before that this is one of the only football games that I enjoy. Not the best advertisement in my opinion, but it's a good game, so I'll let it pass. And here's the sports page, everybody's favorite. Jack Nicklaus Power Challenge Golf. I don't think it holds a candle to Lee Carvello's putting challenge. So we saw an advertisement for this one earlier in the issue, Nigel Mansell's World Championship. It got 5.0s across the board, which is pretty impressive for back then. Look at this. What program was that done in? That's so bad. I love it. It's amazing. I'm happy that they printed that. Super Black Bass, another good game. Look at that. That's like, it's kind of akin to the one we saw a little bit earlier. Yeah, like that was probably done in the same program. Football. So the new SWAT Pro, not for the faint of heart. I don't know what SWAT Pro is. Oh, here we go, SWAT Pro Magazine. I should probably read before I comment on things. And Lynx. Lynx is like in the back of everybody, the Atari Lynx. I've only seen one. Oh no, I've seen two in the wild. Never played it, but I would be into it if I saw it. I should probably pick one up if I ever get the chance to. It seems like an interesting little console, and now that I have the analog pocket, I guess I could just snag the adapter. Bone crunching. You got this mean football guy crushing an SNES controller. That's hardcore, man. Spider-Man 3 for Game Boy. Okay, well, Game Boy's behind Lynx, so that has to say something right there. Reviews are kind of all over the place. Generic soccer advertisement. Nothing super eye-catching. Pretty cool that it has the Game Gear 2-player cable hookup denoted down there. That's pretty awesome. More Game Boy stuff. Raging Fighter. Never heard of this one. It's got decent reviews. And here we have Super Turrican. It's just freaking awesome. And we're getting towards the end here. More Game Boy stuff. New Chess Master, Speedy Gonzalez. And then here's SWAT Pro Magazine. It's only $14.97 per year, so how could you beat that? Dungeon Master, which is like a screenshot from the game. You can see like how pixelated and blurry it is. That was probably hard to do back then, though. And Game Gear, Streets of Rage 2. Awesome game in its own right. What do they give it? 4.5, 3.5, 4.5, and 4.0. Okay, I mean, I guess. And look at that in-house artwork. I mean, that is awesome. Bubble Bobble Part 2, a game that I'm kicking myself for not buying 30 years ago. Game Gear stuff, Surf Ninjas. Adam gives advice on his Game Gear. That's awesome. Here's a Super Strike Eagle advertisement. Some 90s extremeness there. I'll give him a little bit on that. And then just a picture of the front cover of the game. Game Gear Jeopardy. I'm sure that's a fun one to play. Nice shot of Alex right there with that awesome mustache. And then here's an advertisement for the QuickShot controllers. Now, I've never liked these. I've never enjoyed anything that QuickShot has ever made, but I know there's probably some people out there that do. And then there's a dude down there, like typical 90s extreme kid, having a lot of fun with this controller. And here's kind of the weird stuff that I'm into. You got the GamePro Lab Report. So here we have some stuff for the Game Boy, the solar gear, the rechargeable battery pack. I'm pretty sure this was released, and that's a pretty cool gadget for back then. It's not practical in any sense of the imagination for a kid to carry something like that around, but I respect them for making it. The Pro Player, which looks like some crappy third-party joystick. Not sure if this one was ever released. The Slap N Power rechargeable battery pack for the Game Boy. Okay, so I guess it's a little bit lighter than other battery packs, and maybe it charges faster? I don't know. It's good for the environment, according to them. Maybe we'll take their word for it. And then here's a survey, reader survey. They ask you what systems you own, how many, and whatnot. Do you rent games, cable TV, the amazing Sega channel, and I guess it's for a contest. I mean, you can win all that. Pretty cool. IDG Research Services. Attention Sega. Send in to win. I think we're a little late on entering, though, unfortunately. An advertisement for Mech Warrior. Nothing super extreme. I respect them for actually putting images of the games in the advertisement. SWAT Pro. Video game strategies. So I guess strategies, tips, and tricks for various games. Which I'm sure this helped out a lot of kids back then, obviously before the internet. Pretty cool to see stuff like that back then. This is pretty interesting. You have Game World Mania. I guess you could just order games straight from them and they'll ship them to your house. $6 for first class mail or priority mail. A Mario is Missing advertisement. A little ransom note there. It caught my attention. I'll give it to him. Alright, so here we go here. It's some 90s extremeness. You got a dude in a Marlins jersey with like those 90s Oakley A-frames in his cleats riding a surfboard that's way too big for him. He's even got his glove on. Like, what's not to love about that? That's awesome. Game Busters, Batman Returns. And then here's another advertisement. I guess you could just buy games straight from these guys too. Master the Game. You got Genesis, Sega CDs, Super NES. So here you go, you got Pro News. They're talking about the rating system that Sega eventually established for their games, I guess in the wake of Mortal Kombat and Night Trap and whatnot. Blockbuster Video, top 10 video game rentals. I'd be interested to see some of these. Kirby's Adventure, that was a newer release at the time. Bubsy was #1. Man, I feel bad for those kids. X-Men. Now in '93, I was a Genesis kid, so this one really hits home for me. I played a lot of X-Men at the time, so that makes sense to me. And look at this awesome Cherry Coke setup with Sonic in the background, and that appears to be a Chevy Astro van, I believe. That is awesome. And then here's like a little Sonic RC car. Here we go, Funkoland. This is the good stuff here. So this is all the used stuff. You got NES, Super, and whatnot. Let's pick out a pretty sought-after game. Let's try Panic Restaurant. So they'll buy it from you for $22 and then sell it for $39, which is still pretty high for back then. And then that's it. You can order back issues, player's guides, and whatnot. The first issue of GamePro, that's pretty cool. And then the SWAT magazine that they were pushing before. Game Discount Warehouse, I guess you can buy more games. Game Power Headquarters. It's just like all game advertisements back here. And then here's more 90s extremeness. It's time to make them sweat with our crappy controller. You got two 90s dudes getting blown away. I think their CRT literally blew up. This is awesome. You got a GamePro poster in the background. Bowling trophy, or I don't know what that is. And then of course it's made by STD. You can't make that stuff up, guys. That is hilarious. So here we have Konami's Raging Fighter gracing the back cover. And I appreciate that they put some screenshots in there, albeit that they all kind of look almost the same, but this is a pretty cool advertisement. I think I'm going to check this one out. Man, this was awesome. I haven't cracked this magazine open in many years, and browsing through it today really transported me back. Of course, I enjoyed all of the gaming content and commentary, but I think what I really liked most was seeing all of the old school 90s advertisements. Advertisements that catered to the video game demographic were definitely a different breed back then, and you don't see stuff like that now, so it was cool to see it again in all of its 90s extremeness. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video, and if you did, please let me know in the comments. I have a good amount of GamePro, Game Informer, Nintendo Power, and a bunch of old strategy guides, so I'd be more than happy to check more of them out. As always, thank you so much for watching Retro Game Attic. I really do appreciate you all. Have an awesome day, and stay tuned for more.